The Sahara Desert stretched endlessly in every direction, a sea of sand under the merciless sun. Dr. Ethan Voss stood at the edge of the excavation site, his eyes fixed on the impossible structure before him. The portal, a massive, shimmering disk of energy suspended in midair, defied every law of physics he knew. Ethan's hand unconsciously moved to his father's old watch, its hands forever frozen at midnight. The cool metal against his skin grounded him, a reminder of why he was here, why he had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. "It's real," he whispered, more to himself than to his assembled team. "After all these years, it's actually real." Dr. Nathaniel Grant, standing a few feet away, let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, his fingers fidgeting with the folding knife in his pocket. "Looks like the conspiracy nuts were right for once. There really is weird shit buried in the desert." Ethan shot Nate a withering look. "This isn't the time for jokes, Dr. Grant. We're standing on the precipice of the greatest scientific discovery in human history." Nate held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, don't get your lab coat in a twist. I'm just trying to lighten the mood. In case you haven't noticed, we're all a little on edge here." Major Jason Cooper, who had been silently observing the portal from a distance, stepped forward. His face was an impassive mask, but Ethan noticed a tightness around his eyes that betrayed his unease. "Dr. Voss," Cooper said, his voice low and controlled, "I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here. Is this thing stable? Safe?" Ethan turned back to the portal, his mind racing through calculations and theories. "Stable? Yes, as far as we can tell. The energy readings have been consistent since we uncovered it. As for safe..." He trailed off, lost in thought. "That's what we're here to find out," finished Dr. Amir Qureshi, the team's linguist and historian. He was crouched near the base of the portal, examining the strange symbols etched into the sand around it. "These markings, they're unlike anything I've ever seen, but there's something familiar about them." Ethan nodded, grateful for Amir's input. "Exactly. We need to approach this methodically, scientifically, no rushing in half-cocked." Nate snorted. "Says the man who's been obsessed with proving his dad wasn't a crackpot for the past 20 years. Ethan felt a flash of anger, but he pushed it down. Nate's words stung because they held a kernel of truth. He had devoted his life to this pursuit, sacrificed his marriage, his relationships, all in the name of proving that his father's theories weren't just the ravings of a madman. "My father," Ethan said slowly, measuring each word, "was a brilliant scientist who saw something the rest of the world wasn't ready to accept. And now we have proof that he was right. This portal, whatever it is, whatever it leads to, is going to change everything we thought we knew about the universe." Cooper cleared his throat. "That's all well and good, Doctor, but we need to focus on the immediate situation. NASA and the government are going to want answers, and they're going to want them fast. We need a plan." Ethan nodded, pushing his personal feelings aside. "You're right. Amir, I want you to continue studying those symbols. See if you can find any connection to known languages or mythologies. Nate, start setting up the sensor array. We need detailed readings on every aspect of this thing. Major Cooper, secure the perimeter. No one gets in or out without our say-so." As the team dispersed to their tasks, Ethan turned back to the portal. Its surface rippled like water, distorting the desert landscape behind it. He felt a pull, an almost irresistible urge to reach out and touch it, to step through and see what lay beyond. But he held back. He had waited this long. He could wait a little longer. They needed to do this right, to understand what they were dealing with before they took that final, irrevocable step. Ethan's hand went to his father's watch again, tracing the smooth glass over the frozen hands. "We did it, Dad," he whispered. "We found your glitch in reality. Now we just have to figure out what it means." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far greater and far more terrifying than any of them could possibly imagine. That night, as the team huddled around a makeshift command center in their base camp, Ethan found himself lost in memories. The flickering light of computer screens reminded him of late nights in his father's study, poring over equations and theories that no one else believed. "Earth to Ethan?" Nate's voice cut through his reverie. "You still with us, boss?" Ethan blinked, focusing on the present. "Sorry, just thinking." Amir looked up from his notebook, concern etched on his face. "Are you all right, Ethan? You've been distant all evening." "I'm fine," Ethan said, perhaps too quickly. "Just processing everything. What have we got so far?" Nate pulled up a holographic display of their sensor readings. "Well, the good news is that this thing isn't giving off any harmful radiation, at least not that we can detect. The bad news is that pretty much everything else about it defies explanation." The display showed a swirling mass of energy, pulsing with patterns that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. "It's like nothing we've ever encountered," Nate continued. "The energy signature doesn't match any known particle or wave. It's as if it's operating on a completely different set of physical laws." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. "My father's theories. He always said that reality was more flexible than we believed, that there were places where the rules broke down." Cooper, who had been silently observing from the corner, spoke up. "And you think this portal is one of those places?" "I think it's more than that," Ethan said slowly. "I think it's a gateway to somewhere else, somewhere beyond our understanding of space and time." Amir's eyes lit up. "That would explain the symbols. Look at this." He spread out his notes on the table. "I've been comparing the markings around the portal to various ancient scripts and mythological references. There are similarities to Sumerian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, even some Mesoamerican glyphs. But it's not just a language. It's like a universal symbolic representation of cosmic concepts." "In English, please," Nate quipped. Amir smiled, undeterred by Nate's sarcasm. "It's telling a story about travelers from beyond the stars, about gateways between worlds, about the nature of reality itself. And if I'm interpreting this correctly, it's saying that this portal isn't just a door to another place, it's a door to another time." A heavy silence fell over the group as they absorbed Amir's words. "Time travel," Cooper said flatly. "You're saying we've discovered time travel?" "Not exactly," Amir clarified. "It's more like a connection point, a place where different moments in time converge." Ethan's mind was reeling. This was beyond anything he had imagined, beyond even his father's wildest theories. But something nagged at him, a sense that they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. "What about the aliens?" he asked. "NASA's initial assessment suggested this was of extraterrestrial origin." Nate shrugged. "Could be both, right? Alien time travelers. Or," Amir said softly, "being so advanced that the distinction between space and time is meaningless to them." Cooper stood up abruptly. "This is all fascinating, but we need to focus on the practical implications. If this thing really is a gateway to other times or dimensions or whatever, we need to establish protocols, security measures. We can't just go charging in blind." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. We'll set up a series of remote probes, gather as much data as we can before even considering sending anyone through." As the team continued to discuss plans and theories, Ethan found his gaze drawn to the portal, visible through the tent flap. Its glow seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, calling to him with a siren song of cosmic secrets. He thought of his father, of the years of ridicule and rejection he had endured, of the day he had disappeared, leaving behind nothing but a cryptic note and a broken watch. "I'll prove you right, Dad," Ethan whispered. "I'll find out what's on the other side, no matter what it takes." Little did he know, as the desert night deepened around them, that the truth waiting beyond the portal was far more terrifying than anything he could have imagined. The team worked around the clock, setting up increasingly sophisticated monitoring equipment and running test after test on the portal. NASA had gone into full lockdown mode, restricting all information about the discovery to a select few individuals at the highest levels of government. Ethan barely slept, driven by a mixture of scientific curiosity and personal obsession. Every new piece of data, every theory proposed and discarded, brought him closer to understanding the mystery his father had devoted his life to solving. It was on the 5th day that everything changed. Ethan was reviewing the latest sensor logs when Nate burst into the command tent, his face pale with excitement. "You need to see this," Nate said, grabbing Ethan's arm. "Now." They rushed to the portal site, where Amir and Cooper were already waiting. The air crackled with tension and an almost electric energy that seemed to emanate from the shimmering gateway. "What am I looking at?" Ethan asked, his eyes scanning the readouts on the nearby monitors. Amir pointed to a series of fluctuations in the energy patterns. "It's changing. The portal, it's evolving somehow." Ethan watched in fascination as the surface of the portal rippled and shifted, its colors deepening and swirling in new, complex patterns. "Is it stable?" Cooper asked, his hand instinctively moving to the sidearm at his hip. Nate nodded, his eyes never leaving the displays. "Yeah, but different. It's like it's tuning itself, becoming more focused." As they watched, the chaotic energy patterns began to coalesce into a more coherent form. The shimmering surface clarified, becoming almost transparent, and then they saw it. On the other side of the portal, visible as if through a window, was a landscape. Alien, yet hauntingly familiar. Rolling hills covered in strange, iridescent vegetation. A sky of deep purple, streaked with ribbons of light, and in the distance, structures that defied earthly architecture, spiraling towers that seemed to defy gravity itself. "My God," Ethan breathed. "It's another world." Amir's voice was barely a whisper. "We did it. We've made first contact." Even Cooper seemed momentarily awed by the sight. "I've seen some strange things in my time, but this is something else entirely." For a long moment, they all stood in silence, absorbing the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Then Ethan's scientific training kicked in. "We need to gather more data," he said, forcing himself to think rationally. "Atmospheric composition, gravity readings, radiation levels, everything we can get without actually going through." Nate was already moving, adjusting sensors and calibrating instruments. "On it, boss. But don't you think it's time we considered sending something through? A probe, at least?" Ethan hesitated. The temptation to take that next step, to push beyond the boundary of their world, was almost overwhelming, but caution held him back. "Not yet," he said finally. "We need to be absolutely sure it's safe before we risk anything or anyone." Cooper nodded approvingly. "Smart move, Doctor. We don't know what kind of defenses or safeguards might be in place on the other side." As the team settled into their new tasks, analyzing the alien world beyond the portal, Ethan found himself drawn to the shimmering gateway. He stood at its edge, close enough to feel the energy prickling against his skin. His father's watch seemed to grow heavier on his wrist, its frozen hands a constant reminder of the past he was trying to unravel. Ethan closed his eyes, imagining his father standing in this same spot, facing the unknown with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "What did you see, Dad?" he whispered. "What secrets were you trying to tell us?" As if in answer, a sudden gust of wind swept across the desert, carrying with it a scent that didn't belong, something green and alive and utterly alien. Ethan's eyes snapped open, and for a brief moment, he could have sworn he saw a figure on the other side of the portal beckoning to him. But when he blinked, it was gone, leaving him to wonder if it had been real or just a trick of his overtired mind. Little did Ethan know that this fleeting vision was just the beginning. The portal had opened a door not just to another world, but to a truth so profound and terrifying that it would shake the very foundations of reality itself. As the sun set on another day in the Sahara, casting long shadows across the alien landscape visible through the portal, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater and far more dangerous than any of them could possibly imagine. The adventure that lay ahead would test not just their scientific understanding, but the very nature of their existence. And as the stars began to emerge in the desert sky, mirrored by strange constellations on the other side of the portal, the stage was set for a journey that would redefine everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place within it. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity and discovery. As the team gathered more data on the alien world beyond the portal, excitement grew. The atmosphere on the other side was breathable, the gravity similar to Earth's. Readings suggested a planet rich in resources, with no immediate signs of danger. But for Ethan, a sense of unease grew alongside the mounting evidence of a habitable world. Something about it all felt too convenient, too perfect. Ethan found himself standing in a vast, dark space. Streams of data flowed around him like rivers of light, forming and reforming into complex patterns. In the distance, he could see the portal, but it was different somehow. Larger, more menacing. A figure approached, shrouded in shadow. As it drew closer, Ethan's heart raced. He recognized the silhouette, the familiar gait. "Dad?" he called out, his voice echoing strangely in the void. The figure stopped just short of being fully visible. When it spoke, its voice was a mixture of his father's familiar tones and something else. Something older, vaster. "It's not what you think, Ethan," the voice said. "The portal, the world beyond, it's all wrong. You have to stop before it's too late." Ethan tried to move closer, but his feet seemed rooted to the spot. "Stop what? Dad, what are you trying to tell me?" The figure began to fade, its outline blurring into the surrounding darkness. "Remember the watch, Ethan. Time isn't what it seems. You have to wake up before—" Ethan jolted awake, drenched in sweat. His father's watch felt heavy on his wrist, the hand still frozen at midnight. But for a moment, just a fleeting instant, he could have sworn he saw them move. Shaking off the lingering unease from the dream, Ethan made his way to the command tent. To his surprise, he found Amir already there, poring over his notes with a look of intense concentration. "Couldn't sleep either?" Ethan asked, pouring himself a cup of stale coffee. Amir looked up, startled. "Oh, Ethan. No, I've been having these strange thoughts. Connections I can't quite explain." Ethan sat down across from him, his interest piqued. "What kind of connections?" Amir hesitated, then pushed his notebook across the table. "Look at this. The symbols around the portal. I've been translating them piece by piece. But it's not just a language or a message. It's like a code, a program." Ethan leaned in, examining the intricate diagrams and equations Amir had scrawled across the pages. "A program for what?" "That's just it," Amir said, his voice low. I think it's a program for reality itself." "What do you mean?" Amir ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "It's crazy, I know. But the more I study these symbols, the more I'm convinced they're describing the fundamental structure of our universe. Not just physical laws, but the underlying code that governs existence itself." Ethan's mind raced, connecting Amir's words with his own nagging doubts. "And the portal? How does it fit into all this?" "I think," Amir said slowly, "it might be some kind of interface, a way to access and manipulate that code directly." The implications were staggering. If Amir was right, the portal wasn't just a gateway to another world. It was a doorway to the very fabric of reality. Before Ethan could respond, Major Cooper burst into the tent, his face grim. "We have a situation," he said. "The portal, it's changing again." They rushed to the site where Nate was already frantically adjusting equipment. The portal's surface had become a swirling maelstrom of energy, pulses of light racing across its circumference. "What's happening?" Ethan demanded, trying to make sense of the chaotic readings on the monitors. Nate shook his head, bewildered. "I don't know. It's like it's receiving some kind of signal, but I can't pinpoint the source." As they watched, the turbulent surface of the portal began to stabilize. The alien landscape they had grown accustomed to seeing was gone, replaced by something else. It was Earth. But not the Earth they knew. This was a world of gleaming cities and impossible technology, of flying vehicles and structures that defied gravity. A utopia straight out of the most optimistic science fiction. "Is this the future?" Cooper asked, his usual stoicism cracking in the face of the impossible vista before them. Ethan felt a sense of vertigo, as if the ground beneath his feet had suddenly become unstable. "I don't think so," he said slowly. "I think it's an alternate reality, a version of Earth where things develop differently." Amir's eyes were wide with a mixture of awe and fear. "The program, it's not just describing our reality, it's mapping out all possible realities." As the implications of Amir's words sank in, a new sound cut through the desert air. A voice emanating from the portal itself, speaking in a language none of them recognized, but all somehow understood. "Greetings, travelers," the voice said, its tones resonating with an otherworldly harmony. "We have long awaited your arrival. The gateway is open. Step through and embrace your cosmic destiny." The team exchanged glances, a mixture of excitement and trepidation on their faces. This was the moment they had been working towards, the culmination of years of research and speculation. But Ethan hesitated. Something about this felt wrong, too convenient. He thought of his dream, of his father's warning. The watch on his wrist seemed to grow heavier, a constant reminder of time's mysteries. "Wait," he said, just as Cooper was about to issue orders. "We need to be absolutely sure about this. We don't know what we're really dealing with here." Cooper nodded, his training reasserting itself. "Agreed, we stick to the protocols. No one goes through until we've gathered more data." As the team set about analyzing this new development, Ethan found himself drawn to the edge of the portal. The perfect world beyond beckoned, promising answers to all his questions, validation for his father's theories. But in the back of his mind, a doubt lingered. A sense that they were on the brink of uncovering a truth far more terrifying than anything they had imagined. Little did they know, as they stood on the threshold of the unknown, that their every move was being watched, analyzed, and manipulated by forces beyond their comprehension. Forces that had been waiting for this moment for longer than human minds could fathom. The true nature of their reality was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Days turned into weeks as the team worked tirelessly to understand the portal's latest transformation. The utopian Earth remained visible beyond the shimmering gateway, a constant temptation and source of fascination. Ethan found himself torn between his scientific curiosity and a growing sense of dread. His dreams had become more vivid, filled with fragmented warnings and glimpses of realities that defied description. Each morning, he would wake with his father's words echoing in his mind. "Remember the watch. Time isn't what it seems." As the days wore on, tensions within the team began to rise. Nate grew increasingly frustrated with the cautious approach, arguing that they were wasting precious time. "We're sitting on the greatest discovery in human history," he ranted during one particularly heated meeting. "And we're just, what? Twiddling our thumbs, taking readings? We should be through that portal, exploring." Cooper, ever the voice of reason, countered. "And what if it's a trap? What if we go through and can't come back? We have a responsibility to..." "To who?" Nate interrupted. "To the bureaucrats back home who are probably already figuring out how to weaponize this thing? We're scientists, damn it. We're supposed to push boundaries." Amir, who had been uncharacteristically quiet in recent days, spoke up. "There's something else we need to consider," he said softly. All eyes turned to him. "I've been continuing my analysis of the symbols, cross-referencing them with the new data we've gathered. And I think we might be looking at this all wrong." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, leaning forward. Amir took a deep breath. "The portal, the alternate Earth, even our own reality. I don't think they're separate things. I think they're all part of one vast interconnected system. A system that's alive, in a sense." A heavy silence fell over the group as they absorbed Amir's words. It was Ethan who finally broke it. "You're saying reality itself is conscious?" Amir nodded slowly. "Not conscious like we are, but aware, reactive. And I think it's been waiting for us. For this moment." The implications were staggering. If Amir was right, everything they thought they knew about the universe, about existence itself, was wrong. As the debate raged on, Ethan found his gaze drawn once again to the portal. The perfect world beyond seemed to shimmer, as if beckoning him forward. And for a moment, just a fleeting instant, he thought he saw a figure standing there, a familiar silhouette that made his heart race. "Dad," he whispered, taking an involuntary step towards the gateway. Cooper's hand on his shoulder snapped him back to reality. "Dr. Voss? You all right?" Ethan blinked, the vision gone. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired, I guess." But as the meeting adjourned and the team dispersed to their various tasks, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Something was coming to a head, a convergence of forces beyond their understanding. That night, as Ethan tossed and turned in his cot, the dreams came again. But this time, they were different, more vivid, more real. He found himself standing in a vast, dark space, surrounded by streams of data and fractured realities. And there, in the center of it all, stood his father. "Dad?" Ethan called out, his voice echoing strangely in the void. His father turned, and Ethan gasped. The man before him was both familiar and utterly alien, his features shifting and changing like liquid. "Ethan," his father said, his voice resonating with power and sadness, "you've come so far, but you're not seeing the whole picture." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, struggling to understand. "Dad, what's happening? What is all this?" His father gestured, and the space around them erupted into a dizzying array of images and sounds. Ethan saw countless versions of Earth, of himself, of reality itself, all interconnected, all part of some vast, incomprehensible whole. "This is the truth, son," his father said. "Reality isn't what you think it is. It's not fixed, not absolute. It's malleable, programmable." Ethan's mind reeled. "The portal, the symbols Amir's been studying." His father nodded. "Yes, they're part of the code, the underlying structure of existence. But there's more at stake here than you realize. The portal isn't just a gateway, Ethan. It's a reset button." "A reset for what?" "For everything." His father's form began to flicker and fade. "You have to understand, the simulation..." Ethan jolted awake, his heart pounding. The word simulation echoed in his mind, bringing with it a flood of implications too terrifying to contemplate. As he sat up, trying to calm his racing thoughts, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. His father's watch, the one that had been frozen at midnight for as long as he could remember, was ticking. The hands were moving, counting down to something, and Ethan had a sinking feeling that when they reached midnight again, everything would change. The final piece of the puzzle was falling into place, and the truth it revealed was more earth-shattering than anything Ethan had ever imagined. As he rushed to wake the others, he knew that the next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the fate of reality itself. The stage was set for a confrontation with the very nature of existence, and the outcome would reshape everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place within it.